Conception after contraception, understanding the basics. Maybe you're here because you're planning to have a baby, you're still on contraception and want to know how long it might take for you to be able to fall pregnant. Or maybe you've actually stopped contraception a while ago and you just want to know how long it'll take because so far nothing's working. I'm here to help you navigate this road and give you the information that you may find really helpful in order to get you where you want, which is for you to be able to hold your baby in your arms. My name's Nicola Court. I'm a fertility acupuncture specialist and traditional medicine practitioner based in Essex in the UK, and you are very welcome here. Understanding how your menstrual cycle works and the effects of contraception upon it is key when you're trying to conceive. And many women have spent a large portion of their lives trying not to get pregnant and use contraception in order to do that. So therefore their understanding is very limited. But what we do in clinic is help you understand the menstrual cycle, your menstrual cycle, and also the effects that your contraception may have had on you. When a female becomes sexually active, in the UK specifically, the main route is to prescribe them the contraceptive pill. And many women, many girls were put on the pill at a young age and have never come off it or have just changed between one contraception and another. And so they've spent many, many years having very little understanding of their bodies, their systems, and their menstrual cycle. Only when they finally wish that they want to conceive that they become interested in learning more and seek advice. So why does this matter? Well, the quick guide that we're going to talk about is you need to maximize your fertile window. You only have a certain amount of days a month that you are fertile. We also want to avoid unnecessary stress and misinformation. If you go on Dr. Google, there are pages and pages and thousands of advice columns of misinformation about your cycle, about how to fall pregnant. We want to detect hormonal imbalances and cycle irregularities. We want to know when to time conception. The amount of women I have in my clinic who have been trying for a long time, but it turns out actually have been trying to conceive at the wrong time. They're not trying to conceive in their fertile window. We want to support your overall reproductive health, and we want you to start to understand how your cycle will work. This handy bar graph will show you how your time frame will work for conception after stopping your specific type of contraception. Here we can see the IUD, copper coil, the contraceptive injection, patches, combined pill, and all the others. And there we have the amount of months that are along the bottom for how long it might take for you to conceive. So let's talk about the types of contraception. One of the things we're not going to talk about is condoms, but we're going to talk about mainly the hormonal contraceptives. The pill being one of the most known, the most well-known worldwide, and it's one of the oldest forms of contraception other than the condom. We also have the IUD, the IUS, which is intrauterine and intrauterine systems. Contraceptive injections, contraceptive implants, and patches are all types of contraception you may be familiar with. It may take months to regulate your hormones after stopping the contraceptive pill. So be aware that some women will fall pregnant immediately, but many unfortunately don't. And this is where we start to need to unravel why that might be. Understanding the pill. There are two main kinds of pill, the combined pill and the progesterone only pill known as the mini pill. The combined pill contains two hormones that mimic your menstrual cycle. They prevent ovulation and therefore any pregnancy. And here at the bottom we have the most common brands that are available in the UK. If you're in another country, then you may have different brand names, but the product is still the same thing, they just have a different name. So in the UK, we're talking about Yasmin, Microgynon, Lucette, and I can never pronounce this one, so I'm sorry, Rigevidon. When you are given the combined pill, you will get a blister pack of tablets that contains 28 tablets, but only 21 of those have an active hormone in them. 7 of them have sugar pills. When you take the sugar pills, 7 days of those, you would then experience a withdrawal bleed, and that's after day 28. Now, this is why you're not having a proper period. You're having a withdrawal bleed because the hormones have been removed out of your system. And what happens is the lining in your uterus will shed, and then that's due to the drop of the hormone levels caused by stopping the tablets. Let's talk about the progesterone-only pill, which is also known as the mini pill. And it literally only contains progesterone. And you take this continuously without a break, like you do with a combined pill. But what progesterone does is it acts on the mucus plug that occurs at this cervix entrance. And basically that mucus thickens and prevents access to the uterus and the cervix from sperm when you have intercourse. But most women will still have a bleed each month, but not everyone. Understanding contraceptive injections. There are multiple types of contraceptive injection. In the UK, again, in other countries they may have other brand names, but in the UK we're talking about the depot injection, Provera, Sanyana and Noristerat. The injections contain progesterone, which prevent the ovaries from ovulating and therefore preventing pregnancy. When you have the injection, they can last between 8 and 13 weeks. But when you stop the injection, it can take up to 1 year for your body to regulate and for pregnancy to occur. So you do have to plan when you want to have a baby that you leave enough time for this hormone to completely come out of your body so that you are more fertile again. Understanding intrauterine devices or IUDs. There are 2 types of intrauterine contraceptives, IUD and IUS. They are both T-shaped devices that sit in the uterus to prevent pregnancy, and you can see on the diagram the tightly wound copper around the stem of the IUD. There are 2 types. The first contains copper, as you can see, and this is known as the copper coil. The second, known as the marina coil, contains progestin. Copper is toxic to sperm and basically makes the uterus inhospitable, and so you will never be able to conceive using an IUD. Now the IUS, which is the intrauterine system, contains progesterone. It doesn't contain copper. Brand names in the UK include Marina, Kylena, Jades and Levocert. After your IUS is removed, your fertility returns to previous levels almost immediately. The next type of contraception is the patch. This is very popular. It's worn on the skin and contains estrogen and progesterone, and basically it's absorbed through the bloodstream, stopping ovulation. They're called transdermal patches. You change them every 7 days, and for 3 weeks you will have 1 week without one, and then you'll experience a bleed. Yet again, this is a withdrawal bleed. The only licensed patch in the UK is called Evra, and there are multiple shapes, and they're very easy to wear, and many women get on very well with them. There are many challenges in conceiving. Underlying issues such as heavy periods, hormonal imbalances might resurface when you stop your contraception. PCOS, headaches and migraines, painful periods, and endometriosis symptoms may return. And it's important to address these very early and get your body back into balance. And it's crucial for conception and also for successful pregnancy. This is not just about being pregnant. We need a healthy baby at the end of it. So if you were put on contraception in order to manage hormonal problems, then be aware that they may return and they may also be worse when you stop your contraception. Here we have a comparison table between different contraceptive methods. We've listed them in hormonal and non-hormonal, such as the IUD, the copper coil, and the estimated time it's going to take to return your fertility. It also shows you the effects you have on cycle regularity. Timeframes for conception. It takes an average of 1 month to 12 months to fall pregnant after stopping the pill. However, if you take the progesterone-only pill, known as the mini pill, you can fall pregnant extremely quickly. Injections and implants. When you're planning to become pregnant, you need to allow your body to regulate for much longer in order to allow all those chemicals and the hormones to be removed out of your body. The Depo-Provera injection will stop you from ovulating for up to 10 months after you've stopped having it, and for some it can take more than a year. However, if you have an implant, you could fall pregnant straight away, so long as you're ovulating. So be aware, again, you need to plan for this time frame. There's no guarantee that you can fall pregnant immediately after stopping a contraceptive. The IUD is designed to provide longer lasting contraception, irrespective of whether it's a hormonal or non-hormonal type, such as the copper coil. Up to 75% of pregnancies occur within 1 year when removing an IUD. Menstrual cycle overview. If we talk about the menstrual cycle, many women don't really understand what goes on. They just know they have a period every month, hopefully, and also they ovulate. But the menstrual cycle has 4 different phases: the menstrual phase, the follicular phase, the ovulation phase, and the luteal phase. And there's a nice little diagram here explaining when you would see different rises in hormones compared to what's going on in your body with regards to releasing an egg. Menstrual cycles can vary widely, and it's never a good idea to compare your menstrual cycle with your friends. You are completely aside from them and their story. But on average, the menstrual cycle lasts for about 28 days, but the duration and bleeding varies widely. And the average woman has around 450 periods during her entire lifespan, and that's equivalent to around 13 menstrual cycles a year. On the chart, we can see the breakdown of how long the bleeding phase, the follicular phase, the luteal phase, the ovulation phase lasts for. Women generally start their periods around 13 years old and stop around age 50. However, this is not set in stone. Some girls are unlucky enough to start their periods at 8 or 9, and some women don't stop their menstrual cycles well into their 50s. So again, don't compare other people, but these are just the general overviews of your menstrual cycle. The average cycle lasts 28 days. Again, this can vary widely. Bleeding ideally would be between 3 and 5 days, but can be 1 to 2 days either side, or up to 7 days if there's a disorder. Hormones relating to your cycle: FSH and LH. FSH means follicular stimulating hormone, and LH is luteinizing hormone. And these are key hormones alongside progesterone and estrogen that circulate through your body throughout the different times of your cycle. Focusing on FSH, this belongs to the follicular phase, post-period to ovulation. It's controlled by the tiny pea-sized gland, pituitary gland, which is situated in the brain. And this is responsible for growing the follicle, inside of which the egg develops and matures. The follicle then stimulates the ovaries to produce estrogen. Moving to LH, this is luteinizing hormone, and it belongs to the luteal phase, the post-ovulation to period phase of your cycle. It's also controlled by the pituitary gland in the brain. A rise in luteinizing hormone triggers the release of an egg at ovulation and continues to be released for 2 weeks. It also stimulates production of progesterone from the ovaries, and it works in tandem with estrogen and progesterone. Estrogen is one of the hormones that people get fixated on quite a lot. From day 1, which is the first day of bleeding, to day 12, as you approach ovulation, your estrogen levels will gradually rise, peaking around the 12th day. Once it reaches the high level it needs, it triggers a surge in luteinizing hormone from the pituitary gland, which then initiates ovulation. So this is why when we want to see hormone tests, what's working against what. It's not just about the numbers. We want to see what hormone is interacting with what hormone and how, and are they actually working correctly. Estrogen plays a really crucial role in thickening the uterine lining and prepares it for potential implantation. It also helps to thin the cervical mucus, making it more receptive for sperm to be able to travel up into the cervix to facilitate fertilization. Now, we have to be clear that cervical mucus is not discharge, although many women describe it as discharge. Discharge can be pathogenic and sometimes not healthy, whereas cervical mucus is completely normal. So the cervical mucus thins. Without the thinning of the mucus, basically it becomes a plug. And this is where the mini pill that we talked about earlier, that's its job, where it basically forms a plug, stopping semen from being able to travel up higher into the cervix. Moving on to progesterone. After ovulation, the ovaries produce progesterone, and its main job is to prepare the body for pregnancy. It aids thickening of the uterine lining, or the endometrium, in anticipation of implantation of a fertile egg. The menstrual cycle hormonal phases. And yes, I am using a slide I showed you only a couple slides back because this is such a useful slide. We're looking at follicular development, pituitary and ovarian hormone levels, and also the endometrial cycle. In between days 2 and 4, this is where the endometrial, this is the shedding. And then we are looking specifically at when the estrogen starts to rise, and that's towards ovulation. And that, when it reaches your peak, is when you get the luteinizing hormone released, which triggers the release of an egg at ovulation. The LH also relates to progesterone levels, and they should be rising at this stage if implantation is going to occur. Progesterone is what maintains a pregnancy, and what you want to see is that progesterone level continuing to stay high and not dropping off. Once it starts dropping off, that means there's either no pregnancy or there's potentially miscarriage. So why might your cycle feel off? Some women experience cycle irregularities, heavy periods, or hormonal imbalances after stopping their contraceptives. Things like acne, weight gain, mood fluctuations, libido issues, and headaches are regularly reported. After contraception, the body no longer has the synthetic hormones it was used to, and it now has to rely on itself and remember how to do its job. Issues you had pre-contraception that were there now may return. How to naturally rebalance your hormones. There are many ways to do this naturally, but I'm just giving you 5 to go with. We want to reduce your inflammatory food intake that will disrupt your hormones. Think processed foods, sugar, alcohol, and caffeine. They can all contribute to hormone imbalances. You want to swap sugary snacks for homemade snacks, which include dates, seeds, nuts. Anything with blackstrap molasses in would be great instead of white refined sugar. And limit your intake of caffeine and alcohol. In my clinic, we do not say you can't have that, because if you are used to drinking alcohol, then 1 glass of wine every now and then is not going to stop you from falling pregnant, nor is a coffee. So it's about moderation. It's not about being obsessive. We want to boost the gut health because we want hormonal harmony, and a healthy gut microbiome will regulate estrogen metabolism. So we want to look at fermented foods, kimchi, sauerkrauts, kefirs, yogurts, but ones that are low sugar. We don't want loads of sugar in all of these, so be really careful when you're choosing what you're going to consume. You want fiber-rich foods and bone broths if you eat meat. Prebiotics are also very important, and think about garlic and onions and sauerkrauts, and you can eat that before your meals, and ideally a cup of bone broth a day, which you can either make yourself, or there's some really amazing companies out there now that do free range organic bone broths. You want to support your liver detoxification to clear excess hormones. Many women struggle with storing hormones such as estrogen, but the liver breaks down excess estrogen and toxins from contraception. So think again about cruciferous vegetables, dark leafy greens. And you're going to eat things like steamed broccoli before your main meal. You have it almost as a starter. And then also have warm lemon water to support the detox pathways. Balance food with protein and fibers. You want to be able to control your blood sugars. And blood sugar spikes can lead to insulin resistance, which is really unhelpful for many women. Think about grass-fed meat. Go for the best that you can afford. If you buy really cheap meat, then only eat meat limited in a week and then go for what you can afford. If you're eating meat every day and it's low quality, I would urge you to save that money and just buy one thing a week that's really, really good quality. Eggs, again, free range organic if possible. Do not buy battery eggs because you're not going to get the nutrition out of them that you will from a really good egg. Beans, quinoa, whole grains, berries, especially blueberries, leafy greens, and you're going to swap your refined carbs for whole grains, sweet potatoes, anything like that that is going to manage your glucose levels. And always pair your carbs with protein. Lastly, we come on to fats. I see many women who struggle with their weight or are trying to control their weight by reducing their fat intake, but unfortunately, without fat, our bodies do not work. Fats are the building blocks of our hormones, and eating the right types can help restore the balance. So, a very, very good olive oil, butter, avocados, nuts and seeds, and lean protein. You can try adding a teaspoon or a tablespoon, whatever your preference is, to your porridge, rice, or main meal every day. We now come to something really fascinating, which is basal body temperature charting and how it relates to fertility. Charting tracks your ovulation patterns using temperature shifts and also when you monitor your cervix and the changes in your cervix. What we can see here on the page is an example chart of a patient I saw, and this is a really interesting chart. It shows a very good ovulation, and then as the temperature drops down, this was a normal cycle where they weren't trying to conceive, but this is a really good example of what your chart would look like if you were to do it. What it enables us to do is it helps to time intercourse and to diagnose any cycle irregularities, and it will define your fertile window, which is absolutely essential. I've seen many women who are not trying to conceive at the correct time. So they've spent months and months trying to conceive at the wrong time of their cycle. Practical tips for charting. Your basal body temperature ranges in the follicular phase ideally between 36.2 and 36.3 degrees C, and your luteal phase should be 36.9 to 37 degrees C. You want to monitor your cervical mucus for the most accurate fertile window indication. Cervical mucus is produced by the cervix. Some women do not notice it when they go to wipe, but they may have to actually have a little bit of a rummage round and actually feel at the entrance of the cervix. That's when they'll find their cervical mucus. It alters through your cycle, and it should be slippery, clear, and resemble egg white. Now, the advice is you don't check it after you've been for a pee, because some women find that they will have lost it during the urination. So you want to check for your fertile mucus before you urinate. Something else that you can do, which is not for everybody, but you can actually check the position of your cervix. If you are going to do this, please maintain good hygiene, wash your hands before you do this. As you become closer to ovulation, the position and texture and shape of the cervix will alter. As you reach the peak of estrogen, the ligaments that hold the cervix will change. And due to the estrogen, they will literally pull the cervix higher up in the body. So you will find it harder to reach it. At ovulation, the cervix is also softer. It's more squishy. So the advice is, if you're not sure, wash your hands and just have a good feel around. And then this is the stuff that you can mark on your chart. All of these things will give us a really decent amount of information as to what is going on with your body. After ovulation and the estrogen levels reduce, your cervix will then lower again as the ligaments relax a bit. So the cervix will be more easily palpated. Going back to the cervical mucus, many women will describe a sensation of just feeling a little bit wetter, and that can be enough to say that you're in your fertile time. So why do we bother charting? Many doctors aren't interested in your chart. As a practitioner, I'm very, very interested in your chart because we can spot hormonal issues really quickly. The amount of thyroid problems I've spotted in my clinic that have been undiagnosed through basal body temperature charting, I've lost count of. But what it also does is it can encourage awareness of your body and of your cycle, as well as helping identify your fertile window. The only time we don't do charting is if you have anxiety and doing your charting every day increases your anxiety. Then we don't bother because it's not worth you being upset over doing the charting. Another reason for doing it is that the pea sticks that you can buy over the counter, the LH sticks, will only tell you if you're fertile today. It doesn't give a warning the day before or the day before, which actually would be more useful. This is when you have your charting and you have 3 or 4 months worth of charts. You can see a pattern in when you're coming into your fertile time, so you can plan your intercourse correctly. Only 1/3 of women actually ovulate the day before their temperature rise, which means that ovulation can occur up to 3 days prior to that. So if you're only trying to conceive on the day that your pea stick tells you, you may have missed that window of opportunity. So with the BBT chart and your cervical secretions, we can then see the changes in your estrogen and progesterone levels. And as we said before, the estrogen is what thickens the endometrium and increases the production of fertile mucus and makes it slippery, thin, and stretchy. A study from 2017 regarding subfertile couples discussed the presence of cervical secretions as an even better fertility marker than LH kits. I've linked this study below if you want to go and look at it more. Basically, the whole fertile window with cervical secretions is more accurate than the LH kits because they indicate more days when you have sex, when you have sexual intercourse, that it may result in pregnancy. This is a great research topic and research study, so please go and have a look. And cervical secretions are really, really important because it protects the sperm from any issues with the vaginal microflora and helps to also filter out any abnormal sperm. Now, if you have vaginal secretions that actually have abnormal pH value, and this can be easily tested, it can damage the sperm. So it's important to protect his swimmers. We're now going to talk about something called the 3/6 rule. And this is really important if you're going to do charting. And this is another reason why we really, really recommend charting. Many people don't realize how long sperm can actually live for in the female reproductive tract. And it can live for up to 5 days. The ovum, which is the other name for the egg, only has a lifespan of 24 hours after ovulation. So if you are only having intercourse as you ovulate, there's a small possibility you might actually miss that chance. So having sperm in the reproductive tract before you ovulate is actually really important. And this is why you should have sex every 2 days, not every day. Don't wear him out, but you want to have this window where you're looking at secretions, you're looking at cervix position, you're looking at how you feel. Use your LH sticks, but use your BBT charts from previous cycles. Your window can last up to 6 days. So the 3/6 rule basically means that you must have 3 high temperatures above the level of the previous 6 daily temperatures. And what I'm going to do in the next slide is just give you a couple of examples of BBT charts that show this. Here you can see two charts. The top one shows the LH peak on day 16, and we can see those 3 higher temperatures compared with the previous 6 lower ones starting on day 7. The second chart has a spike on day 8. This might throw some people off, but if you make notes about how you are feeling, how you slept, did you feel okay, we can see that this is still within the 6 lower days compared with the higher 3, which start on day 13. Thank you so much for watching my presentation. I hope you've learned a lot and feel empowered to take control of your fertility journey. So what are your next steps? If you're in the UK, you can apply to work directly with me, either in person here in my clinic in Essex or via herbal medicine consultations over Zoom. I'd love to support you on this journey and help you achieve your dream of starting a family. If you're not in the UK or not quite ready for a consultation yet, don't worry. Use all the information from this presentation to start supporting your body naturally, and keep an eye out for my more in-depth courses and fertility programs coming soon. If you want to stay in touch, make sure you're on my email list for exclusive tips, fertility insights, and first access to new resources. Click the link in the next slide, and it's attached in the email to join my community, my subscription list, and take the next step towards your fertility goals. Take care. Here's your free BBT chart if you are interested in charting. All you need to do is get a really decent thermometer. Don't worry about it saying fertility because sometimes they cost more. You just need a digital thermometer that goes in the mouth. You cannot do this using a forehead or ear thermometer. They're not going to give you accurate results. It needs to be under the tongue, or one also that can be used vaginally. For some women, if the charting under the tongue isn't working, we will ask to do vaginal charting. And then every time you take your temperature, you just mark it on the chart, and then all the other symptoms that we talked about, you also add those in.